Hey guys, this time around we're going to be doing some more base coating, this time of the fletchings on the arrows and a few other bits and pieces, and we're also going to be base coating the metallic areas on the quiver, and we're going to be painting in, or sort of painting in, the initial coats for the metallics on the quiver. So this colour I'm using here is Umbra Lumber by P3, and it's a nice little dark brown, very similar to Charred Brown from the Vallejo game colour range, and Games Workshop has a similar colour as well. It's essentially a sort of burnt umber kind of colour, very nice for doing sort of this kind of thing and sort of base coating and things like that. Covers really well, makes a good sort of wood colour, which is what I'm using it for here, and covers really well as well, the P3 one does. So here we are, we're covering over the logs. I decided I didn't like the red of the logs, I wanted them a bit darker on the base. I'm hoping to do the rest of the base quite light, so it's kind of difficult to tell at the moment, and we're going to be leaving the finishing of the base till last, because as you can see I'm using it as a stand for my finger when I'm painting. And you've probably noticed that I use on my right hand, I use my little finger as a sort of brace against, there you go, see it perfectly there, as a brace against what I'm painting, and that's simply to steady my hand. If you try and paint without actually sort of holding on to what you're painting in some fashion, you're going to have a very hard time of it, because your hand, especially for something this big, you can get away with it with traditional painting on a canvas because the canvas is so big, but with a paint like this, the slightest shake or anything, the slightest vibration from your hand, and you've just painted over half the model. So you have to be really careful, and I've found over the years that just gently bracing my little finger against the base, or maybe even part of the model, if I'm painting high up on the model, is enough to actually keep my hand steady to paint. You can also sort of lock your two hands together if you're not painting something that's mounted onto a paint pot or cork. Like this is, you can also brace your two hands together underneath the base, and that gives you a very steady sort of base to work on that you're holding the paintbrush and the miniature with. So I'm using the brown on these areas because these are going to be a sort of bronzy colour. On the previous version of this miniature, I painted the bronze straight over the white undercoat, which was a bad idea. Metallics have a tendency to pick up on the colours underneath them very significantly. You can try this out yourself. If you grab yourself a bit of cardboard or a bit of plastic card, prime it, and then paint a bit in white, paint a bit in black, and sort of make sure they're sort of nice and opaque. And then if you pick a selection of your metallic colours and then go over those and put sort of stripes of your metallic colours down, you'll find that the difference between how they look over the white and over the black is startling. So it's a good technique to use to actually undercoat in a darker colour when you're painting metallics, especially if you want things like the sort of the bronzes and the golds. They work quite well with these sort of reddy browns. In fact, the blood tracker is an excellent base for if you're painting in golds, for example, because it gives you that sort of reddish brown colour, but it is also light enough to actually base coat over. The bronzes on this model I want fairly dark. I'm going to go the other way with this one. The previous miniature, as I said, the bronzes were very, very light and shiny, and I didn't like them that much. So this one I'm going to go completely the opposite direction and have them very dark and muted. I'm probably not going to be varnishing this miniature either. I don't, for display purposes, I don't tend to varnish miniatures that are purely for display. Obviously game models, if I'm actually sort of there for a game, then yes, I will varnish them, otherwise they'll just get trashed pretty quickly. But for display models I don't tend to varnish because I find it changes the colours quite significantly sometimes, and you can lose a lot of the sort of nuances and definition in your highlights. Here I'm just using a Citadel, one of the older Citadel foundation paints, Eand and Dark Sun, and this is just to put some details onto the fletchings. I'm not entirely sure about the colours. I decided to go for yellow because it kind of fitted in with the whole autumn theme, but it kind of has it sort of has the effect of making the fletchings sort of look like a bumblebee in a way. You can probably see it there. It's that sort of brown and yellow stripes. I'm not convinced. I'll leave it for a few hours, see how I feel about it afterwards. And just quickly dabbing in the remaining fletchings in the quiver there. And again, this is all sort of fairly quick and slapdash because it's not highlighted. I've got to go back in and sort of highlight all of these fletchings, although in all honesty, because they're clumped so close together, it's probably just going to be a dry brush or sort of the equivalent thereof of an appropriately lighter version of that brown. The fletching on the actual that she's got knocked, I will probably do a bit more detail on. You can see the feathers in it, or sort of see the feathers in it, so I'll probably go back in, do a bit more detail in it. I'm also going to go back off camera and just paint in the bits behind the arrow, the bit behind, because it's fairly blocked and it's difficult to get to on camera. And also off camera I'm going to repaint her eyes. It's driving me nuts just how bad they are, so I'm going to go back and redo them off camera. I'll try and explain what I did, either if I repaint them or I just tidy them up. I think possibly just some shadows under her eyelids, under sort of her eyebrows, just sort of above her eyes might do the trick. They're just too wide open at the moment. I think it looks like she's staring a bit too much, so I'll try and do that at some point. Here we're coming in with the first bronze. This is a Vallejo model colour, and I believe the colour is just called bronze, and it's really nice colour actually. Really good shine to it. I've added a bit of black in here. This is going to be the base coat, and one thing that a lot of people don't do with metallics is people tend to just sort of put a metallic colour down and just go, yep, it's shiny, we're done. And yeah, that works great for sort of armies, and if you're painting up armies, but for display figures you can't do true metallics like that. I've tried doing non-metallic metals and I'm not that great at it. It's something I desperately need to practice on a regular basis before I commit myself to doing it. It's a technique that can look absolutely fantastic or utterly awful depending on how you put it off. But there we go, so that's just two layers of the metallic there, one with the darker colour and one with just the straight metallic. So I'm just cleaning up the sort of the wood of the quiver here, but I like the way that metallic shines, so I'll probably do some more highlights. And the nice thing about metallics is they're literally just paint with metallic flecks put into them, so you can quite happily mix it with non-metallic paints. And what I'll probably do is find a light yellow or something along those lines that will highlight up quite nicely to bring that up to a nice shine. I've seen a lot of books and things and sort of videos online saying that sort of you can highlight up golds and bronzes and golds and things like that all the way up to silver, but I'm not completely convinced about that. I may give it a go on another model at some point, but we'll see. So yep, that's basically about it really. We're nearly done. Well, I say nearly done. Her arm is probably going to be metallic as well, and once I'm happy with the bronzes we'll be going over the rest of the model with those bronzes, and then it's the base. See you next time.